District Attorney Fani Willis's alleged lover, Nathan Wade, has found himself once again in the crosshairs as his ex-law partner, Terrence Bradley, will have to testify on what he knows about the special prosecutor's relationship with Willis. Superior Court Judge Scott McAfee made the call on Monday, and Bradley could be compelled to testify as early as Tuesday. Per the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, Bradley's testimony could be damning for Willis and Wade. McAfee has already heard testimony from a former friend and employee of Willis who said the romance began long before Willis hired Wade. Defense attorneys have suggested Bradley can also testify that Willis and Wade were romantically involved before she hired him. Bradley had attempted to use attorney-client privilege to shield himself from testifying further, but the judge has denied that excuse.
Defense lawyers representing Trump affiliate Mike Roman in the election interference case are attempting to discredit Willis and her office over the DA's apparent mistruths regarding her relationship with Wade. Trump's attorneys are now calling into question cell phone data that could clarify the timeline of when their relationship started. Information they maintain could be used in their quest to disqualify Willis and her team. Per the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, court records show Willis and Nathan Wade called each other more than 2,000 times and texted nearly 10,000 times in an 11-month period in 2001. So not 2021. So not just that, but that cell phone records show that Wade was at Willis's apartment 35 times from April 1st to November 30th, 2021, including twice late at night. They say they only met for professional reasons, but that would put the timeline of them starting to have more intimate relationship with each other earlier than she has claimed. She says that they didn't start a relationship until after he was hired.
Remember, there's this friend of hers who has testified that the relationship started earlier than they let on. It seems to be that there is mounting evidence that they were, in fact, already a couple dating, amorously involved when she chose him to be the special prosecutor here, despite his lack of relevant experience. So they have a huge problem on their hands that this ex-law partner doesn't want to testify and tried to argue this was attorney-client privilege, but that's not holding water, so he's going to have to testify about his knowledge as to when the relationship actually began. This seems all very bad. Again, not really for the Trump case, but for the involvement in particular of these two individuals who seem to have, that there's considerable evidence at this point that they misstated the nature of their relationship, that it is perfectly legitimate to question whether he was picked because he was in a relationship with her, even without getting into the kickback nature of it, that he paid for trips and she says she paid him back in cash. And now we've actually had some corroboration that she does tend to carry a whole giant purse full of cash. She paid off at this winery they went to. She paid a couple $100s worth in cash. So maybe she did end up paying back the money, but frankly, his appointment in the first place is suspect if they were already dating, given his lack of relevant expertise.
Yeah, and remember, the game here for the Trump lawyers is delay, delay, delay. The issue is it's not really relevant whether or not she is disqualified. McAfee said at the start of this that the bar for disqualifying an attorney is pretty high, but regardless, this pushes the the trial date back and creates delays that are as good as a disqualification for the whole case. If it happens after the election day, then it's largely a moot point in the eyes of Democrats. We're really hoping that a conviction might turn the tide of the election.
I mean, it won't be a moot point in terms of the proceedings because the Georgia accusations, unlike other trials Trump is involved in, he can't pardon his way out of because it's a state issue. But I absolutely take your point that they want it before the election day. They hope that it will have some negative impact on Trump's reelection capabilities. Of course, that is actually just entirely speculative. It could make him more popular. It could make him more popular, certainly among Republicans. Now, there are some people, when polled, who say that it would make them less likely to vote for Trump if he were convicted of this or any of the other things before the election. Those polls seem to show to me a lot of those people doubting that he will be convicted. So I don't know if they're considering something they don't actually expect to happen, and then if it did happen, how they would feel about it. Yeah. I will say, I find it possible that it would hurt his reelection if he were convicted of something beforehand. I frankly think that could be the case and it could also not be the case. I don't
I'm
know that it
skeptical.
will change things that much. Yeah. I think it might make Republicans want to vote for him even. Maybe they're already at the limit, so it doesn't matter. So you just have to rally the Dems or something. But I don't know, man.
Yeah, that's a tough one. Well, look, meanwhile, former President Trump on Monday appealed a judge's decision ordering him to pay more than $450 million in the New York Attorney General's sprawling civil fraud case against his business empire. With Trump's notice of appeal formally filed, the case will head to the First Judicial Department Appellate Division, where the former president will seek to get the 9-figure fine and the other penalties tossed. The New York Times' podcast, The Daily, did an interesting review on this earlier this week, pointing out that this is not a kind of a generalized punitive fine amount found by a jury, but that this is a calculation of the amount that Donald Trump constructively defrauded the banks by overstating his property's value. So it's a big number, but it's not one that you can kind of blame a kind of a liberal jury pool or something like that for. This is a calculation based on what the banks basically would have made if he had accurately estimated his own value.
Right. I mean, again,
it's a lower value than what the prosecution had come up with. It's what the court. Yeah. The court ran the numbers themselves and found a slightly lower amount.
Right. Again, it's something the government came up with. It's not something the bank did not say they felt defrauded by it. So that's
it's what the court actually came up with.
It's what the court decided, but the people the organizations he allegedly defrauded don't feel defrauded and took no action and would be open to working with him again. But it does, it is a ding to Trump. One imagines at some point he's going to have trouble paying for all of his various fines and court actions and also running for re-election. Again, this comes down to strategy. Do you want your candidate, your standard bearer, to be someone whose time, money, and attention are so consumed by non-campaign related matters? But if Trump is going to be the nominee, so I guess that question is moot. I think it will hurt his ability to campaign, that he owes great amounts of money and that he has to keep going back to court to haggle it out. From my mind, every time he's in court rather than in front of a cheering crowd in Ohio or Pennsylvania or Michigan is a missed opportunity. But
yeah, and it's important to note that his stated net worth is not very much higher than the combined judgments in this case, in the E. Jean Carroll case, about $500 million rather. So he has already started to, and has for some time, campaigned on the idea that he is being hit with these, in his mind, unfair judgments. And the question is whether or not his voters are going to be willing to subsidize his personal debts in furtherance of getting him into office. And certainly, I'm sure many will. They see him as being unfairly targeted in these cases, and they want to help him. But it puts him in the hole fundraising-wise as compared to several other candidates if he's basically fundraising to get his judgments, his civil judgments paid, and trying to raise millions and millions of dollars to run a presidential campaign.
Yeah, it's going to have a negative effect on his ability to campaign, and I think we're going to see that in the coming weeks and months. More Rising right after this.